Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. Today's episode is sponsored by Duke Energy. I'm joined today by democracy reporter Kyle Ingram and higher education reporter Jane Winik Sartwell. It's a busy Monday, August 17th as we're recording this. Governor Stein has some vetoes coming up later this afternoon that will be vetoed by the time you're listening to this on Tuesday. Kyle will talk more about that in a few. Jane is perfect timing because this is first day of class week, first day of classes for a lot of major universities, NC Central University in Durham, UNC Chapel Hill, NC State here in Raleigh. Duke, I believe, is starting this week too, or they may be the week after.
I think they're next week.
Okay, so the next 2 weeks, everything is gearing up for a fall semester. We got a variety of things to talk about. On the higher ed beat, is there anything as the school year is beginning that you're kind of big picture keeping an eye out on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really exciting to have everyone back on campus. I'm kind of getting that back to school jittery feeling for the first time in a few years. So that's really exciting. I guess I'm just interested to hear how students are experiencing these campuses, especially I've heard a lot about, deferred maintenance and old facilities and stuff on campuses, as far as, dorms at Chapel Hill and things like that. So I'm interested to know how move-in went and how the dorms are holding up.
Or is there construction going on at the schools I guess it would have to be not even this most recent budget, maybe previous budgets if it was already underway?
Yeah, Chapel Hill is building 2 new residence halls. I don't think they've actually broken ground. And one interesting thing is that at Chapel Hill, they're converting, I think this will be 2028, but they're converting a residence hall that's currently for graduate students into undergraduate housing, meaning that there'll be no more on-campus housing for graduate students at Chapel Hill until they build Carolina North.
Okay.
So that's kind of a controversial thing.
Where do things stand with Carolina North, if you can just big picture tell people what it is?
Yeah, so UNC Chapel Hill is building a massive satellite campus about 2 miles north of the school, and it's been controversial because at first they were thinking about putting the basketball arena there. Now those conversations are on pause, but Carolina North stakeholder advisory committee is meeting regularly to discuss some of the issues surrounding the campus, what's important, what's not to the school, and they're in the process of hiring a lot of different vendors for master planning and place design and all of these kinds of things. So things are really gearing up.
So we're probably, the students that started this week are not going to see anything like that within the next 4 years.
No, probably not. Maybe there'll be construction started by the time they graduate. Maybe.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's stick with Chapel Hill and talk about your recent coverage of how they're planning to deal with this increase of students. So they want to have thousands more students over the next few years, 5 years?
Yes. So I think the original framework was over the next 5 years, they're going to add 1,000 students every year. I think now they're saying add 5,000 students to the student body by 2034. So it's an ambitious goal, and it's made a little complicated by the simultaneous budget cuts that UNC Chapel Hill is pursuing. For example, they're pursuing a $90 million budget cut overall. $25 million of that is intended to reduce administrative costs, which basically means administrative headcount. So they are not looking at layoffs. They're hoping that they can just do that all that $25 million through attrition, that kind of thing. So, but it's complex because more students and less administrators could mean less hands-on support for students. So this was that was kind of the interesting topic of discussion at the trustees meeting a couple weeks ago. But really the official line is that you shouldn't think of it as a budget cut and more as a strategic reinvestment.
Oh, that sounds like some corporate speak right there.
Yeah. So it's possible that they could be taking that money and still using it to support students.
So there's no deadline for anything yet at this point. They're just starting to look at how they can streamline things or potentially cut vacant jobs.
Exactly, cutting vacant jobs, and they're streamlining administration. So whereas before it would be like the chemistry department has its own comms person and the history department has its own comms person and its own finance person and its own, now it would be finance would be a large umbrella so they're centralizing all the administrative functions, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Let's pick a different point in the triangle and go over to NC State. You and Jaden Watson-Fisher did a fun story recently about the logo of the Wolfpack logo. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, so NC State has updated its Slobbering Wolf logo for 2026. It is pretty similar to the old logo. It's a little bit more bold, and the hat says NC State instead of NCSU because NC State says no one knows what NCSU means outside of North Carolina. They may be right about that. But it stems from a controversy last year with Will Wade when he said at the season opener last year, he had this team wear vintage uniforms that were not approved. And he said that he wanted to wear a jacket with the slobbering wolf on them, but the university wouldn't allow him to.
So now they are, or would have.
Yeah.
There's also that other, we were talking about this before we started recording, since I'm an NC State parent now, or I bought all the merch, and there's also like a Big Bad Wolf version where it's like even more like sharp teeth and I guess intimidating against, that ram over in the other corner of the triangle. I looked up, I can't think of it on the spot, but there's the era when all these mascots were initially drawn, there are a lot of sailor hats. So listeners, start thinking about your mascot maybe when it came to be, and you're like, why are they all wearing sailor hats? So that was just a cartoon trend, maybe even like the same artist that did a lot of this from whatever era that was. So
that's interesting. I didn't even think about why he's wearing they're
all little sailor
hats.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to the third point in the triangle, which is Duke, and some things going on with Duke Law School.
Sure. So the Department of Justice has informed Duke that it has found evidence of racial discrimination against white and Asian applicants to Duke Law School. These are findings that come from an investigation launched last year into Duke Law's practices for admission, including stated after affirmative action was struck down, Duke Law, I guess still internally, was pursuing a diverse class. And the DOJ accuses them of using hidden racial proxies to try to up the number of admitted Black and Hispanic students. They use LSAT scores to sort of like prove out that there was different standards for different racial groups. Duke has had a pretty muted response to this. They haven't come out and said we disagree or anything, but the two, Duke and DOJ, are entering, negotiations to try to decide the next step and sort of get to a settlement. But it's unclear, what exactly will happen next.
Okay. All right, so moving on to state government. Before the break, we're going to talk about these two different bills. I think they're the last two bills that were sent to Governor Stein before lawmakers left for basically after the election in November, although they have these placeholder dates or they could come back once a month if they want to. But Stein cleared two budget technical corrections bills, the reg reform bill, one elections bill, I believe. So that leaves another elections bill that he's already said he's going to veto. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Kyle will explain what these bills will do or don't do and the status of that.
This message is sponsored by Duke Energy. Duke Energy is a North Carolina-based company dedicated to powering the state's continued growth and supporting economic development across communities. To learn more, go to agree.duke-energy.com. This message is sponsored by Duke Energy.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with higher education reporter Jane Winik Sartwell and democracy reporter Kyle Ingram. Before the break, we mentioned these two bills that Stein is expected to veto later in the day on Monday. One, he explicitly already said that he's going to do this. So tell us, let's start with the elections bill. What would it do and why is Stein opposed to it?
Yeah, so the elections bill is this omnibus package with conservative election priorities in it. Some of the big ticket items in this would be reducing the early voting period for primary elections. It would go from 17 days to 10 days, but that would not affect any general elections like the one coming up right now, just those primaries or any runoffs. Some of the other provisions that have gotten a lot of attention are that it would require the Republican state auditor, Dave Bolick, to conduct these post-election audits in randomly selected counties after every election. The bill does specify that the results of those audits could not be used to challenge the results of an election, but would be looking for any sort of misconduct in the way that ballots were counted or the ways that polling sites were carried out, anything like that. It also creates a few new avenues to challenge ballots after elections, separate from the auditor, allowing voters themselves to bring those challenge even after results have started to be reported. And Democrats argued this, can create perverse incentives for losing candidates to try and chip away at ballots until they can try to flip the election results in their favor. Many people invoked what happened in 2024 with the state Supreme Court race when Allison Riggs narrowly beat Jefferson Griffin, the Republican candidate, and then he sued and we had a 6-month legal battle over the results of that race.
So that sounds like dragging things out. When I've heard a lot of rhetoric over about how elections need to be decided more quickly. So this could potentially extend that, right?
If it were to become law. Now, this one passed entirely along party lines. The swing votes, including current Democrats and then ones who used to be Democrats but switched unaffiliated, they also voted against it. So if those numbers held, the Republicans would not have the numbers to override Stein's likely veto. And as we know, Republicans aren't planning to come back until after the November election. Mm-hmm. So we'll just have to see then.
And really, I guess what those the unaffiliated House members think, what some Democrat swing votes think about it, and the number of people in the room at the time, since that veto override threshold of 3/5 is who's actually there on the floor. And then they could also take a part of it and put it in some other surprise bill or something like that after the election.
And they sort of have already done that with the bill that Stein signed last week, which was House Bill 834. In that instance, the Senate sort of took out all of the less controversial portions of the big elections bill and put it into a separate package that a lot of Democrats actually did vote for, because this one was mostly making administrative changes that a lot of people were on board with, including actually softening the deadlines for some ballot counting or for fixing issues with ballots.
Okay, and what's this other bill that Stein has already said that he's vetoing? And if people are listening to this Tuesday or later, you can read all of Kyle's coverage at newsobserver.com. It's covering the event at the Executive Mansion on Monday.
So this is a court changes bill that would allow the North Carolina Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to suspend trial judges without pay while they're the subject of an investigation. This sort of stems from the fact that a lot of Republicans in North Carolina have been been unhappy with the actions of some trial court judges in more liberal cities, where it comes to, letting violent offenders out on bail, that sort of thing, and they believe that the Chief Justice should be empowered in that way. Stein said that this would have a chilling effect on judicial independence, and that it would make trial court judges more fearful to carry out their jobs and interpret the law in ways that they see are fit. The whole way that North Carolina handles judicial discipline is very complicated and sort of a black box. We have this body called the Judicial Standards Commission, which is responsible for investigating and disciplining judges. But their investigations are entirely confidential unless the state Supreme Court finds that there was a violation that is worthy of issuing public discipline on. And that happens very rarely. So there could be many investigations happening at once that we don't know anything about, or even that they are happening. But as long as an investigation's happening and the Chief Justice sees fit that there is, a massive violation here, he would be able to suspend the subject of that investigation while the investigation carries on.
Why isn't it public?
I mean, they say, advocates for, sort of confidentiality in this process say anybody can file a complaint with the Judicial Standards Commission, which is true. And so if we were to report on every single complaint that came out there, we would have some really crazy claims, a lot of which are probably not true. But, other states do this differently, and it could be to the point where if an investigation reaches a certain point where there is reason to believe that a violation occurred, then it becomes public. But that's just not the way that it's done here. The way that Judicial Standards Commission is appointed is also very controversial. The legislature recently took away the state bar's appointees to that commission. They used to have 4 independent members, lawyers from the bar. Now those appointments are made by legislative leaders instead. And a lot of the appointments to the Judicial Standards Commission are made by the Chief Justice himself, which is Paul Newby, a Republican.
So it sort of centralizes, I guess, on one of the branches, the control there, since they made some appointments just this past couple of weeks, I think, in their appointments bill, or at least one. Mm-hmm. The Legislative Services Officer was appointed an alternate before. I don't know, were there other people on that you remember? I think that was the week you were off. It was a long bill of appointments. So I was going through all the appointments that people in power make, across the board, and Stein makes a massive amount of appointments. I went down a rabbit hole of boards and commissions and everything else. And the legislature also makes a massive amount of appointments. So anyway, all right, so let's move on to our picks for Headliner of the Week. I'll turn it back to you, Jane. What's your Headliner of the Week?
Yeah, well, I kind of have 2. One is that Forbes came out with its first ever ranking of HBCUs, and North Carolina A&T made the top of the list for public HBCUs. So according to Forbes, NC-A&T is the best public HBCU in the nation, which is pretty cool. My other headliner is that it's NFL preseason. I'm a big football fan, and I'm from Baltimore, so I've always been a Ravens fan, obviously. But now that I've lived in North Carolina for more than 2 years, I'm taking it upon myself to split my fandom between the Panthers and the Ravens this season. So I'm really excited for the season to start.
What are they playing each other? What if they play each other?
That could happen, I think. I have to think about the conferences. Now I'm going to come off as not that big of a football fan.
That's okay. You're learning, right?
But if they play each other, I guess I'd have to root for the Ravens.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's fair.
Okay. All right, Kyle, what's your Headliner of the Week?
So later this week, there's going to be a massive State Board of Elections meeting that we expect is probably going to take all day. And deservedly so, most of the attention around that has been on the fact that the board is going to be resolving early voting plans for 20 counties that had disputed plans. Mostly they're arguing about whether or not to have voting on Sunday or on-campus polling sites, that sort of thing. But something else on the agenda that is a bit more out there is the fact that there is a candidate in Rutherford County for water and soil supervisor who is a self-described Wiccan and necromancer who is petitioning the State Board of Elections to allow them to use their religious name on the ballot, which is Mortellus. And they want just Mortellus, no last name, no nothing else on the ballot, because they say that's how people in the community know them. So at the end of a very long meeting, we're going to see how that plays out at the State Board of Elections.
Okay. My pick for headliner of the week is a different age range of our first day of classes week for those in college. It's also people, parents, teachers, all the people who work in schools preparing for the new traditional calendar school year. I do listen with people where I talk about back to school time being the end of August, and they say, what about year-round schools? Yes, there are plenty of teachers already back at work in year-round schools and students there, but the majority of schools, traditional calendar, or I guess this week is all of, I don't have a little kid anymore, so it's like the meet the teachers, so, good luck to all of the administrators, faculty, staff that are prepping for the influx of all the new students coming back next week in the school system. So that'll do it for us. For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan with Kyle Ingram, Jane Winik Sartwell, and producer Kevin Keister. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Under the Dome, sponsored by Duke Energy, and we'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.